Man, what an end to that game. It's just breathtaking, wasn't it? Fiji, they had it. All they got to do is just catch and pass.
They also had to convert, and the way they've been kicking, that was debatable. But I tell you what, the World Cup just took off. This was an absolutely fantastic, absorbing, controversial, breathtaking match, which showed just how far Fiji have come. And they could, maybe should have won it. Wales dug deep, so deep at times. They were abysmal in the first half tactically, got it better in the second half. George North dug them out of a hole. And, they did just enough. It'll be massive for them. How their bodies will recover tomorrow, I have no idea. The only punch they landed of similar ferocity was by Josh Adams. But boy, Nick Tompkins in the centre for Wales, I think they'll be picking up bits of him from the pitch for the next week.
Look, I think the neutrals, we all wanted Fiji to win that game, certainly showed enough that they can, compete at, with the top tier teams, even though Wales perhaps aren't that. And look, if I was Australia, I'd be looking very nervously over the shoulder.
Absolutely, because they will not give away as many penalties as they did in this match. It was another of those annoying Fiji performances in the first half where they were too indisciplined at various times, allowed Wales just to relieve the pressure. Simon Raulu would be very upset with that. He'd be more upset with referee Matthew Carley's interpretations of a number of situations, including disallowing tries and then not giving Wales a yellow card when they patently deserved one, but then pinging Fiji and then thinking, I better send one of the Wales guys off for 10 minutes as well. It wasn't his finest match, and it added to what was, as somebody said to me as we were walking to do this chat, that was the best live game they've ever seen. It was that good.
Yeah, look, the Rugby World Cup is up and running. I mean, let's track all the way back then to the very first match. We'll do that in a second. Also today, South Africa over Scotland. Pretty comfortable from the Yarpies.
Yeah, but Jesse Kriel, should he be on the field?
Yeah,
well, that's going to rumble and rumble. These headshots, which saw Tom Curry sent off, there are inconsistencies already, and this is what we worried about. They brought the bunker system in to sort this out. It isn't sorting it out. And and certainly Tom Curry's defence team will be looking at some of the incidents that didn't get a red card, and in fact didn't get any action at all, and using them in his defence. And, it is not what we want to be talking about, particularly after a game like we've had today, where the hits were legal, and were ferocious. And that's what you want to see. Rugby played at the very highest level with massive intensity, and even the All Blacks can look at that Fiji performance and think, we were way off that sort of pace. We were way off that sort of commitment. And, they set the tone now for any team that wants to impose themselves on the opposition. The only problem Fiji had was that discipline. And if they can sort that out, Australia are in for a real hard, tough battle, which no doubt Eddie will be preparing them for.
Chris Jones, times on rugbypass.com and live in France for us. Marseille. Crowd crush. And once again, the French authorities, they did it at the Champions League final a couple of years ago, just can't seem to get themselves organised. I've been reading all of the press releases coming out from World Rugby, apologising to all tens of thousands of fans. They say they all got into that game eventually. This was England versus Argentina, but just a nightmare, Chris. Why?
I was there, and it was absolutely diabolical. I had friends trying to get into the ground. Some got in 2 hours before kickoff, and that was the only way to avoid the crush. It was sheer ineptitude, and the wishy-washy statement that's come out from World Rugby doesn't address the problems that were created by a lack of organisation. You think back to the Champions League with Liverpool fans being tear gassed and pepper sprayed, and of course it was all their fault. It was nothing to do with the organisers. We've got the Olympics coming up next year. For goodness sake, France has to get this right. I mean, today was much better here in Bordeaux. People got in on time, but we're talking about a 44,000 capacity stadium. When you're talking nearly 70,000 in Marseille, we've got some very big games coming at that stadium, and it's just going to. By the way, around the stadium in Marseille, they are building what appears to be a new complex, which is just adding to the whole idea that area is just not suitable, and so therefore you should have put into place ways of getting the crowds in and out safely, and that wasn't happening for the England game, and it was actually one of the worst scenes I've seen at a Rugby World Cup in terms of treatment of fans.
Chris, the other thing, and you're there, why no replays at the grounds? Why? I mean, because we're watching the World TV coverage here, the World feed, and it's terrible. At the end of that Fiji game, what you wanted to see was that pass hit the ground. You wanted to get a replay. You don't get any replays. What's going on with that?
Well, they put the shot clock up as soon as they can to try and keep the crowd from reacting to any particular incidents. Well, of course, you can't treat the crowd as fools. A lot of them are watching live games on their phones, just because they want to see the replays in the ground, and others are watching it. So you get the booing and the hissing and the catcalling. So it's not working that way, and it is just not the way people watch rugby these days, because you've got all these cameras, you've got fantastic technology, which they're using in the bunker system not very well, but they could use it to actually give the crowd the ability to see what's going on.
Let's go back to the All Black performance, because we've got to talk about that, or lack of performance. What has that said to the rest of the rugby world after we got smacked by France in the opener?
It says you haven't got over that South African rollicking. That's what it says, mentally and physically. That was your chance to prove that the All Blacks really were going to be a major force in terms of actually winning this trophy again. But they didn't step up to the mark, and that is really worrying. And you can point to some of the key people who weren't missing. I think Kriel is a massive loss in terms of the physicality and what he can do, and the go forward he gives the All Blacks. And there are others that are missing as well who are part of the machine. But quite honestly, the machine isn't operating at a level that is going to win the World Cup at the moment. And, the quarterfinals are looming, Marty, and there are some big beasts waiting for a not very impressive New Zealand team.
The French, though, looking at the way that they played, how good are they? Did they surprise you at all?
They surprised me that they handled the pressure so well. And this was always going to be the question coming to Paris for France first up. Would they deliver, or would they once again fail to handle the expectation of a nation? And they're embracing it. This Damien Penaud is described as an absolute nutcase by Sean Edwards because of the things he does in training. Well, he does some pretty remarkable things on the pitch during matches as well. And when you've got a finisher like that, who will make something out of what seemingly is nothing, and you've got a team that's operating well, despite the fact that Smith was giving Dupont a hell of a time at scrum half, really disrupting well, they still found ways of winning. And that's a dangerous sign for everybody else when you've got 80,000 fans believing, and the team starting to really believe that they can win this World Cup for the very first time. That's the sort of self-belief that's frittered away from the All Blacks at the moment, and Fozzie's going to have to work really hard to get it back quickly.
Have the Wallabies turned a corner under Eddie Jones, or is that just a win over Georgia like they should have had?
Look, they attacked really well. They have got some fantastic players. We know Corey Betty is always well worth watching. But quite honestly, Georgia could have scored 2 or 3 tries. They cut them open, and that will be really concerning. The very raw coaching group that Eddie's put together. They were just happy to get out of town with a win, and they had some bits and pieces in their attack that will worry the rest of the people in this, the rest of the teams in this pool. But quite honestly, if Fiji are looking at the way that Georgia cut them open so easily and should have scored, I mean, there was a fantastic run of examples of how not to score tries in international rugby, and Georgia are number 1 at that. Fiji won't be. They will get the ball over the line, and so I think that Eddie will spend the next however many days he's got to work on this purely on defence, because attacking-wise, they're looking good again. They play at pace, they generate quick ball, and they make some good decisions.
Finally, England against Argentina. You can't win a test match with 14, but they managed to do it. Were you impressed with the Poms?
Yeah, look, one man doesn't win a test match, according to everybody's sayings. And I put this to Steve Borthwick afterwards, and he said, no, one man doesn't win it. I said, but George Ford did. And he laughed, because it was a fact that 27 points from one bloke is just some performance. And the fact it was 3 drop goals, it's just fantastic in terms of showing how you can make an old art fit for purpose again in a new age. And drop goals, Johnny De Beer, Johnny Wilkinson, the drop goals have been part of Rugby World Cup folklore. And 3 for Ford is great for England. The rest of their attack was absolutely dreadful, but they got a win. And if they can keep winning with 14 men, then they might actually do something with 15 if they can ever manage to keep that number on the pitch.
Finally, first weekend of a brand new World Cup, and you've been to the ball, mate. You sound as though you're excited by it.
You cannot not walk away from this absolutely beautiful stadium here in Bordeaux and not be enthused about what's to come, because other teams will now believe they can actually play that style of rugby, move the ball, not just play kick tennis. But I'm afraid at the back of my celebratory voice is the belief that we're going to have a week of those disciplinary hearings and those sightings and controversies, because there are areas of this World Cup, including the way they dealt with the fans in Marseille, that are not working, and that's just not good enough.